Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game 6 Clay podcast. It's your boy Gautam, joined today by my one homie, Matt. No Chuckster on this episode, and we're missing the Chuckster after last night. But we got Matt here. Me and Matt gonna break down the Warriors' first regular season game, man, against Phoenix Suns. Matt was right. Ended up being a 108-104 L to KD, D Book, the new look Suns, KD's first return back to Chase with fans, season opener, our first look at Chris Paul, Dario Saric, a lot of these guys, excitement around the roster. But before we get into it, Matt, how we doing, brother? After that loss, man, you called it. You called it. You called the loss.
I did. It's one of those things though, where if you guess an L every time, you're gonna be right sometimes. You know what I mean? No, I'm okay, man. I actually slept pretty well last night. It didn't keep me up. We'll talk more about all that stuff later on. It's more of a personal growth journey than it is my belief in the Warriors, I think. But hey, not doing too bad. What about you?
Good, man. I mean, I was feeling a little excited about going in to watch last night's game. Obviously just with the season opener being the season opener, and so much talk about around the Dubs just this offseason. And we've covered it, man. Like over the summer, just the excitement around this roster, how it's constructed. The core, specifically Steph, having a chance to go and get number 5 this season, and kind of a revamped team with Chris Paul, Saric, Kuminga, and Moody looking to take the lead. GP back, like guys healthy. And something just after last season, it left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. I think players, organization, fans, they really just wanted a mulligan going back after the championship run. So to have a team that coming into last night, you're very excited about the prospects and what this team could do. I'm with you, man. I was very encouraged. It was a loss, and we'll talk through the game, but I was very encouraged after the loss, man. Obviously, just being game one, you're never going to look too much into a win or loss, just either way. Like even if they've gotten blown out, I think the KD Warriors, the first game they had, they lost by 30. So like, obviously, game one is never like the be all end all of what a team's going to look like, but the roster construction for this team, you really see the growth in which the front office really put into A, trusting their young guys to develop, but B, also getting guys that fit in how the Warriors play Warriors basketball. And Chris Paul, and my biggest takeaway was like the bench, man. The bench unit. Obviously Chris Paul with the starters was not did not look as good. And I think we all know like at some point it seems like it's inevitable that this guy has to come off the bench. But that bench unit, man, of CP, Dario Saric, JK, Moody, GP, that unit really got the Warriors back into the game in the first quarter, got them a lead. And once that bench unit kind of went off the court and you kind of went back to a smaller lineup is when the Suns made their runs in that game. So to have a season last year where the Warriors, obviously bench units was a big issue. We were talking about the Dantes, the JPs, and obviously all love to those guys, but that bench unit last year was a key struggle for the Warriors to find consistent production, and you could see how the pieces fit with Kuminga taking the lead, with Moody playing defense, GP just absolutely around everywhere, making life hell for anybody that had the ball or in the vicinity of the ball. And CP and Dario Saric, man, that Dario is the quintessential Warriors big. He's able to shoot, he's able to pass, high IQ player, solid rim protector as well. I thought he had some really good blocks and just changing shots for guys that are trying to get into the hole. And Chris Paul, man, just you can see what this guy can bring to this team from a scoring standpoint, from a facilitating standpoint, but also just ability to play different lineups and rotations around him. So super encouraging, man. I'm never too happy after a loss, but genuinely, I obviously wanted to win. I think the Warriors let it go. I think they still could have won that game down the stretch. Still some sloppy stuff to clean up, but for game one and how you're kind of seeing this team morph into what it can be down the road, very, very positive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything you said is like anything I wouldn't disagree with any of it. I think it's all spot on, to be honest. I'm not.
Thanks, bro.
It's the 11, dude. We know the issues, right? It was Chris Paul. The starter doesn't work. I mean, against one game, but the preseason stuff did not look good. But you're right, right? At the end of it all, the Warriors shot 10 of 43 from downtown. Lost the game by 4 points, missing their best defender, one of the three best defenders in the league as it is, right? In Draymond. Their best player was not having a good shooting night. No, I mean, again, there's so many different ways to look at this game. One of them is like, hey, they shouldn't have been in a spot anyways, right? But they were. But I think there also are some things where concern might be a dramatic word in this case, but there are some things where I want to see some changes pretty quick. And there are also some things where, hey, if these things don't work themselves out, like Clay shooting, for example, sooner than later, the Warriors going to be in trouble, right? You can say, and that doesn't mean Clay didn't play well yesterday. Clay was pretty solid on D yesterday. We've all talked a lot about it, a good amount. He rebounded the ball pretty well. He did a good job on KD here and there. He didn't take too many shots, if I recall. He had 11 shots yesterday. No, that's wrong. 18 shots. But again, that's about where he's at anyway, right?
Yeah.
So this team they just need scoring outside of Steph, and they're still having that issue getting it. And if they continue to play the way they're playing, and I don't even like saying the way they're playing, it's one game, right?
Yeah.
But there are just concerns that if certain patterns are repeated, especially with who's playing and when they're playing, I'm concerned, right? And kind of getting into the obvious stuff here. Why is Steph playing with Corey Joseph or Chris Paul?
Yeah,
most of the time he's in, right? Why are we going with Clay playing 36 minutes in the first night of the season, especially on a night when Moody has it rolling, right? I'm not worried about the JK stuff. He got 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the game. He played 20 minutes as it was, which tells me, honestly, this guy's probably looking at 25, 30 minutes a game if he's not picking up those fouls. But it really is just a matter of like, hey, they can't start small. And and we were joking in the group chat the other day, right? And you kind of you called the Steve Kerr starting Chris Paul thing kind of trolling, which maybe, right? My issue with this stuff is like, listen, they got off to a horrible start last season. They were 3-7 to start the year. They notoriously got off to bad starts throughout in individual games throughout the year, and it cost them, right? They have the starters trying to claw back into the game. You have your best 5 guys, taking leads, the bench losing leads, the starters taking leads back. They can't do that again this year, right? These guys are older. It didn't end well last year, obviously. And so I really just hope Steve Kerr leans on that depth you were just talking about, right? That 5-man unit, they did not just hold the fort, they came back, right? I think they were down 8 or so, and that unit got in there. In the second quarter, it came back, blew it again, right? And then Chris Paul was pretty damn awesome in the third quarter all the way around. The whole team was. But they need to lean that depth, right? They have a legitimate backup at every position. That's not something that most teams can say. And it showed yesterday, right? JK was pretty damn good in his minutes. Moody was fucking fantastic. Sarge, like you said, awesome. I think I could see a little less of Sarge, to be honest, as far as ball touches goes. I would love to see him spread the floor a little more and see what JK looks like as a dive man or as a screener here and there. But no, I thought a lot to be encouraged about with the individual players. My only concern is with our guy, Stevie Kerr, taking a minute to see what might be painfully obvious to the naive like ourselves, right? And that might be, I'm sorry, Chris Paul can't start this team, man. He can't start next to Steph. And we're going to get into the next few games, but I'm sorry. I want no part of Chris Paul and Steph Curry being responsible for covering De'Aaron Fox in the league month. I watched that last year, the playoffs, and it took a toll on our guys' legs, man. Chris, it's got to be, again, if I'm Steve Kerr and I watched that last game, I'm like, holy shit, I could start Moody, will look fucking awesome. I can start GP2, will look awesome. I can start Kuminga, will look awesome. We have so many options, man. No, I mean, I loved your bit on that 5-man group, man. I think we also got to talk, what the fuck is going on with Maple Jordan, man.
Maple Jordan, man. Yeah, Wiggins was and I want to clear like my initial take. Like, obviously I had the same concerns as you. I think Steve Kerr pressed all the wrong buttons yesterday. And again, I'm chalking it up personally as just it's game 1. But you're totally right. Like, you can't take a chance on the early part of the season, especially what we saw last year. And to even go back a year before that, that championship team, the 22 team, they went 18-2 to start, and it got them that kind of breathing room down the stretch when Steph went down, when Draymond got hurt.
When Clay's coming back, man,
Clay's
getting
coming
Clay back in
back.
the
Like
groove, man. Yeah.
it gave them that breathing room to say, hey, we are pretty much going to lock up a top 3 seed. Maybe whatever, I forget how it shook up, but I think the top 3 was pretty much locked in for them. There was 2 for the most part of that season. So it's very important to get off to a good start. Like I don't want to sugarcoat like the loss and be like, hey, like, oh, they lost the game, whatever. Like it's not preseason anymore. Like every single game counts, and we, especially with what we saw last year in the West, like every single game is going to end up counting to keep hopefully keeping you out of the play-in. But that top 6 seed, man, like it's going to be fluctuate. Those from 3 to 6 last year, we saw it or 3 to 9, really, we saw it fluctuate like on a weekly basis on who was hot and who wasn't. So like for the Warriors to come out as nonchalant as they did yesterday with these lineups, I'm totally with you. I think the small lineup was whether it was Steph and Chris Paul or Steph and Corey Joseph, those lineups got absolutely mauled, rightfully so. You're playing like guys that are 6'7", 6'8". KD was out there with like the Eubanks, and like we had 2 point guards. Like, what are we doing out here? So I'm totally with you.
And I love Steph, man, but our 35-year-old 6'3" point guard shouldn't be guarding Devin Booker for multiple sessions a game, man.
No shot. And for Steph too, man, like he plays his best when he's the primary ball handler, and he's got guys like, you know, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, like guys who are gonna help create around him. And from Steph running that system, it opens it up. And I think a lot of the reason is that Draymond was out, that you wanted another playmaker in Chris Paul, which I understand from, you know, just trying to, you know, work in that offensive rhythm and kind of establish that. But when you got Draymond, I'm a big fan of going with a more traditional lineup. Like you have guys to do it. Like you have, like you mentioned, Moody in there, you're gonna look good. Like JK in there, you're gonna look good. And like you're not really giving up on anything from a size standpoint, from a athletic standpoint, defensively and offensively. These guys can still put up points and like help you flow next to Steph. I think that Steph and Goon's lineup, it was like Steph, Moody, JK, Gary Payton, and Sarge, I think was 5, maybe it was Steph and 4 bench guys. And that unit was doing just fine. So like to think that Steph can't be the primary ball handler or playmaker out there and still be able to just wreak havoc on the defense is asinine. We've seen this for Steph's entire career. And I'm giving Steve Kerr the benefit of the doubt in terms of how fast he's going to make these adjustments. But I'm totally with you, man. Like yesterday was a game that was lost based on the type of rotations that were put out there for major spurts. Like Corey Joseph played like a 4-minute stretch where I think they outscored by 12 points. Like that shouldn't happen. And I'm happy that he didn't go back to it in the second half. But those are the kind of momentum runs that you can't give up. You're, like you mentioned, you're an older team. We saw what happened, exactly what happened with this team last year when they did go be in a hole when the bench unit wasn't able to do it. You have guys now off the bench that are going to be able to plug and play, and with different kind of lineups, different kind of combination. You've got connectors in Chris Paul, Steph, Clay, all these guys, and you're still waiting on Draymond to come back. So I'm hoping, and I'm assuming, I'm giving Steve Kerr the benefit of the doubt that there's an adjustment made for Friday night against Sacramento. But it was clear to everybody watching that small lineup couldn't hang, and it's not going to be able to hang from a defensive standpoint. And it looked kind of clunky offensively, man. I'm not gonna lie. They were obviously, a lot of it was missed shots, a lot of missed layups, but the offensive side of the ball looked way more free flowing when you had a more traditional lineup with these kind of, you know, defensive athletic wings, these young guys that we have. And when you have them, there's really no excuse to not play those right lineups and combinations, which we didn't have last year. So you're really you're playing with fire at this point. And it is one game, but you know, you've got to build these habits early, and you want to see those rotations and lineups kind of get set earlier than later. So I think the time for experimenting was preseason. And you know, just given last year, you have like, there's no excuse to get off to a bad start, especially with everything that you've been saying in the offseason.
Yeah, I think those are all great points, man. And I also, again, this is rarely, if ever, going to be a straight up Steve Kerr bashing podcast. But also, you know, I think part of this is a Hall of Fame player in Chris Paul. And I can understand, like, hey, we're going to give it a shot against his former team. Exactly. See how it goes. Yeah, I mean, if you're Chris Paul and you're like, hey, we're down a starter and I'm not the guy, I can understand that's a bruised ego potentially. But again, man, that's not Warriors basketball, right? So it needs to be. Steve Kerr talked about the presser last night, right? Hey, we're going to close games with the guys who are playing best. You got to take the same approach with the starters, man. If you're going to be that, that thoughtful about things, look at the team you're playing, right? And I mean, I don't know what would have happened if Beal had played. Maybe they go with Moody or Kuminga or GP to start. It kind of felt like that's the nail in the coffin when Beal wasn't playing. But they got to, like, again, I'm just going to keep bringing up Friday. We'll get to Friday in a sec, but they can't start that group out against the Kings. They're going to get lit up. We saw Keegan Murray, again, love Steph. Keegan Murray 6'7", 6'8". Chuck Lettick ran about this a few weeks ago. Steph's gonna get torched by the guy. He just shoot right over him. Steph's a good little defender, man. It's not him. It's just, if that's what we're doing, there's mismatches all over the place, and guys are getting gassed. We're not getting the most out of that shooting backcourt.
No, I'm totally with you. And one encouraging thing though from last night was Steve Kerr going with the hot hand down the stretch, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, but going with Kuminga in that closing lineup over Wiggins, who, man, Wiggins didn't look that good last night, man. A lot of missed opportunities, a lot of missed layups. Defensively, he looked a step slow, kind of lethargic last night, and he got pulled in the closing lineup. And I feel like Wiggs is one of those guys where we've kind of got used to being just relying on Andrew Wiggins to just be himself, be that, like, I think we said it just on the last episode, like he's an 18 to 20 point night guy. He's going to give you solid effort on defensive end, and he's one of the best two-way players in the league. But for Kerr to go with Kuminga last night in the starting lineup over Wiggins, I thought it was encouraging and discouraging. I think encouraging from the standpoint of, hey, JK is like proving like himself to this coaching staff that they now trust him to go out in there in a closing lineup to get there. But from a coaching standpoint, it's like, hey, if we can't rely on a guy like Wiggins, who we've come accustomed to relying on, like, this team there's problems, and like you're gonna have matchup issues. You're gonna have lineups that you may not be able to roll out because of that. So positive and negative, but just game one. But he looked a step slow in preseason too. So hopefully it's not something to come. But I'm sure he's going to bounce back. But definitely something to monitor for sure.
See, I'm just not sure anymore. I'm not gonna let you know me, man. I'm not gonna be sure about a whole lot until I see it for a long time. And the last thing we saw with these guys was inconsistency. Granted, again, it's just, there are a number of circumstances you can point to for why Wiggins is inconsistent last year. A lot of them were outside of his control, and thoughts to his whole situation, of course. But I'm sorry, man. Moody and Kuminga want to be out there always. Those guys. I've always had a bit of an issue with the Kuminga, doesn't play hard mindset. I don't think that's the issue. I think he plays hard in some of the wrong ways sometimes. The rebounding effort's not always there, but he's trying when he's on the court, okay? And he's trying to get to the rack. He's trying to be what the Warriors need. Same for Moody, right? Moody's confident out there. He's going for loose balls. He's hustling his ass off. It's never a question of those things. And I love Wiggs. I've said before, in the pantheon of Warriors, in my mind, like, I hold Wiggins in higher reverence than I hold KD, not because I think Wiggins is anywhere near the same player. I just feel more emotionally attached to that guy. So it's not supposed to be a Wiggins bashing fest. But if you got two young guys who cost, between the two of them, half of what you're making, and they're coming. Moody and JK are on their way up, right?
100%.
The replacement's there, man. So Wiggins needs to figure this shit out quick, because again, this team, they need him to be good, and they don't. The Warriors, like you said, they need that, and this can't turn into a thing where he is anything but at the very least, like, Wiggins middle of the year championship season, right? The only I don't know if playoff Wiggins ever come back. I don't know. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
I have no clue, but if he could be the guy who was an all-star that year, who was almost an all-defensive player, the Warriors will be in great shape. But if not, I really do think an empowered Kuminga and an empowered Moody can take a lot of that on. But TBD, we'll see.
TBD, but that's,
and Gary Payton as well.
Yeah, and that brings me back to kind of why I'm so encouraged by this group. Like it like the start, like Steph didn't have his best game. He's obviously in foul trouble. Not the best shooting night. Clay also not the best shooting night. Did a lot of other stuff. Wiggins obviously not his best game. I think Looney was fine, but with no Draymond. But you got the guys that stepped up were Kuminga, Moody, GP, Chris Paul, Sarge, like all these guys. I'm excited to see. I think Trace Jackson Davis can really make an impact into this rotation as well. Especially with that second unit where Looney and Sarge, the Warriors have the ability to go bigger as well. And we saw a little bit of TJD in the preseason, but I'm sure he's going to get some run at some point with some of these second units. But kind of goes back to why I was so encouraged after last night. Was my biggest takeaway was this bench is So deep, and like you said, man, you have two young guys, and obviously Gary Payton, but those two young guys in Moody and Kuminga who are here. Like this is their leap season, and they're going to take advantage of every opportunity they get. So yes, you want Wiggins to figure it out and get back to that all-star level caliber player that he is, and we know he still is. But at the same time, if for some reason Wiggins has an off night, or Moody has an off night, you have a Kuminga, you have a Moody, you have a GP. So there's a lot of people that can kind of plug into this lineup where I feel like the drop off isn't as bad as it was last year. So
Oh, not close, man.
yeah, encouraging and discouraging from Wiggs, but there's a lot of obviously a lot of season left. But another guy that's been out and we haven't gotten to see it, Draymond, announced out for Friday night against Sacramento. And just kind of, I'm sure, I think the game after that's on Sunday, so I'm gonna assume we don't have Draymond for the first couple games. I'm gonna say at least until Sunday. Let's assume he's out. What are your kind of thoughts about this upcoming? I think the Warriors have the next 7 of 8 on the road, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. They have a lot
Sorry.
of
Yep.
lot of road games coming up. Obviously you're gonna get Draymond back at some point, but how important is it to get over that road hump? Because obviously last year 11-30 on the road, and you can talk about the offseason stuff with the punch and the locker room being off, but the expectation for this team is that those problems are not going to carry over. The camaraderie sounds better. You went all in with older guys, seasoned vets, so you would assume that the Warriors road drop off is not going to be as much of a glaring issue as it was last year. How big are these this first stretch, but really these next 2 games in terms of setting the tone for going on the road and being able to get these wins that they're going to take care of business in Chase Center. I think they've done that even in their worst years. So the road's really going to be where the Warriors can really take that next step in terms of really climbing in the standings from where they were last season. So how important are these next 2 games, especially now that Draymond's out for at least one?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And you kind of brought up like this the look back to last year, right? Just psychologically, you want to get that monkey off your back as soon as you can, right? You want to look back at last year and say that was because we hated each other in the locker room. That's because we were disconnected. That's because Draymond punched our, fifth best player in the face or sixth best player in the face to start the season. That's because last year our roster wasn't good. It's not us, right? It's not the guys who have been here and done it. You don't want any doubt seeping in early, right? You got to get those wins early on. And you just can't say, again, it's building good habits, building things early. You brought it up earlier, right? This is not a league this year where you can really afford to get off to a bad start. And like last year, we kind of harped on this here and there. Every game matters at this point. Like I guarantee you, spots 2 to 8 in the West will have like 4 games between them. It'll be like that all over again. So get the road woes off, and especially I think they have a couple of games in the East. You gotta be a dominant Western Conference team against the East this year. You have to be dominant because that's the only spot where you're going to find any weak team is the Pistons. You can't even say the Magic anymore, right? It's like the Pistons, the Pacers are good. Like, everybody's good, but the East has a little bit less talent, I would say, right? So when you're out there, it's got to be Dubs, okay? Starting with Sacramento on Friday, those guys, and again, here's the deal. This has been a long time now. The Warriors get everybody's best punch now. It's just the way it is, 100%. Right? That's just the way it is right now. And so, and especially in a town like Sacramento, right? They hate this. They hate this team. The Kings hate the Warriors, man, and they should knock them out last year, right? Draymond made Sabonis his little centaur. It's like we don't. That's it, man. And so you got to come out there. I think that Kings game is huge. You start out 0-2 again. It's just we're leaving this immaculate offseason, right? From the sounds of it, this immaculate training camp where everyone. We hear the word connected, right? This whole time, connectedness. 0-2 after a season like last year is tough. This team's first win should not be against the measly Houston Rockets on Sunday. Yeah, right? That would be a disappointment. Especially again, like you said, it's 7 of 8 on the road. That the Kings at home, that's their one home. That again, they hate you. They want to be great, and you are in their way, and they know it. Okay, so no, it's huge. This is going to be a huge stretch. I'm not going to say season defining necessarily, but you have to come out of this Draymond absence with more wins than you'd expect otherwise. And this team got to be willing to use their 10, 11, 12 guys over that course, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you, man. This is a massive game on Friday. And for as big of as big as a second game of the season can be, like again, I'm not going to make any sweeping judgments about like what this team's going to look like until the 20 game mark is really where like the season starts to like kind of take shape, and that's normally where I start to start making proclamations on the season. But I'm with you, man. Like you're going into Sacramento, a team that you like you said you knocked out. There are the little brothers in this kind of rivalry, this budding rivalry, interstate rivalry, and those that crowd's gonna be like a playoff game in there. Like that crowd is gonna be so raucous for the second game of the season. I think it's their home opener too. So like they're gonna be locked and loaded. So the King, like it's a big test, like you said, and to lose last night's game the way they did, it felt like they let one slip, and that was kind of a key feeling that everybody had last year, where some of those games that they had dropped, especially on the road, were like, hey, we were right there. What the hell just happened? So I'm with you, man. Get the monkey off your back. This is a team that you've seen a couple times in the preseason. You kind of got a taste. So I'm hoping, and like we said earlier, I like Steve Kerr has to. It starts with Steve Kerr, man. Like you have to push the right buttons to get this team going. Like if you're starting Chris Paul again, then that just shows me you're just unserious at this point. You're still trying to just do things your way. And that's just not acceptable this year. And that's nothing again, like not to take away from a 9-time NBA champion, a 4-time champion of this as a coach of this team, but if everybody's able to see it, like I'm sure Chris or Steve Kerr is too. So start bigger. And like you said, they're athletic, they're young, they're fast. We saw it for 7 games last season in the playoffs. You have young athletic guys on your bench that give you that depth, but also allow you to counter some of the things the Kings can do. So big stretch. And again, Houston, another young team that has a lot of young talent. Don't like the Warriors just in general. Like nobody really does. So like you said, you're getting every team the best shot. And for this team to be successful this year is gonna need a markedly better road performance. So it's Friday's a big test, man. Friday's a huge test. And I think they're up for the challenge. I think they're up for the challenge. No Draymond. They looked very good without Draymond last night. Obviously, we didn't get the win, like we've covered, but the team looked like they could have won that basketball game. So I don't see why they're not going to be very competitive, if not be able to pull this out without Draymond. And once Draymond gets back, I think everything's going to start to take shape, and these roster or the rotations will start to really kind of finalize, and we'll see what this team really looks like. But like you said, until then, you got to, if he's out for 3 games, like you should go 2-1 at this point. There's no reason why this team can't win without Draymond. Because so that when Draymond comes back, just you're ready to hit the ground running and go from there. So it's a big game on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I mean, as we kind of sum up Friday's game, man, what are we feeling? How are you feeling? Give me a prediction, Matt. You're a 1-for-1 so far on the season. So what?
Yeah, I'm gonna be totally honest, man. I think this team's gonna get their first win on Sunday. First win comes on Sunday against Houston, man. I think Allen. I just like you to be clear. Steve Kerr has forgotten more in the last 30 seconds than I know about basketball. Okay, this guy though, he rolls with what he likes though for a long time. He rolls with the guys he likes for a long time. I think they get off to a rough start against Sacramento on Friday, and TBD after that, man. I think the Warriors are a more talented team, deeper team, better team. Even without Draymond, they beat them in that competitive preseason game. I just get worried about the starts, and you know what? No, fuck that. Dub,
Let's
dub.
go.
I'm changing.
Let's
I'm
go.
speaking it.
Come
I'm
on.
saying it now.
Lock in.
As I'm saying it, I can't imagine Curtis saying stuff. Like Corey Joseph stretch cost the game in a lot of ways. I don't think Corey Joseph sees the light of day on Friday. I don't know what just happened, man. I'm sick. But I'm taking a 2-1 by Sunday. By the way, 3 of us are recording a little post game pod Sunday evening, so stay tuned. But Gotham, what's your prediction, man?
I'm with you, bro. I think they might be 0-3.
Oh,
I'm completely fucking with you guys. They're gonna be 2-1. I'm with you, dude. I just have faith in Steve Kerr. I think that yesterday's lineups and rotations were more so just to kind of get a taste of what this team kind of looks like with some of these combinations. I think it was for Chris Paul to start against his old team and have that opportunity and not have to come off the bench in his first game. Like give the man his props, like he's a legend. So I think the season starts officially on Friday. It's easy to say that when you lost your first game, but I think they come out of Sacramento and Now again, man, Steph is rent free in the Kings right now. I have buddies that are Kings fans that are like they actually hate Steph Curry now because of what he's done to them. So
Welcome.
yeah, welcome to the club. There's a lot more teams and cities that you can join. There's an apology list that Steph Curry is going to write at the end of his career to all teams in the association. But no, I'm with you, man. I think the Warriors would switch it up, get a dub. I think they get these road issues sorted. This team is just better built than last year. Don't have to worry about going into a road game thinking, oh shit, are we gonna lose this again? I think they changed that this season. A lot more vets. These young guys look poised to make the lead. And let's go, man. The season's starting 0-1, but 81 more games left. And get that first dub against Sacramento and really get the season started off right. And like you said, this big stretch of 7-8, 7-9, whatever it is on the road. Like it's a big defining moment for the early part of the season. Like you want to be in that contention for the top 3-4 seeds, not fighting for the play-in. So I think this team knows that. Last year was such an eye opener, punch in the mouth kind of a season. So I expect punch in the mouth. There you go. I expect them to come out and look a lot better. So I'm going with the Warriors dub and Warriors dub on Sunday just because it's Houston and we own them too. So 2-1 going in that post game pod. But yeah, man, before we get out of here, Matt, besides you got anything else to shout out?
No, just Chuck, man. Just chucking yourself.
Listen, we miss you. Hopefully you enjoy this episode, man. And we got Matt on the light side. We got him away from the dark side. He got 2 Warriors wins prediction. That's wild. That's
I don't
wild.
feel good about it.
We'll take it. Hey, that's fine, bro. That's totally fine. I got nothing else to shout out either. Keep following us, keep following the pod. Appreciate all the listeners and everybody that's hopping on. Fun season loading. 5th championship loading. Shout out the Niners, tough loss. Brock Purdy, get well soon. D-line, figure it out. Niners 5-2. So big game on Sunday too. So we'll see. We'll have a major Sunday Bay Area sports breakdown. So but until then, guys, peace.